Chapter 2, Kabuliwala. Before you read, do you have a friend who is older or younger to you? Do you think that only people of the same age can be friends? Discuss in class. My 5-year-old daughter, Minnie, is very chatty. One morning, for instance, when I was reading my new novel, Minnie entered the room and said, "Father, Ram Dayal, the doorkeeper, calls a crow. He doesn't know anything, does he?" Immediately, she turned to Bhola. Bhola says, "There is an elephant in the clouds. He blows water out of his trunk, and that is why it rains." And then, with the speed of a bullet, he said, "Father, what relation is mother to you?" I said, "Go and play with Bhola. Minnie, I am busy." The window of my room overlooks the road. Minnie was playing softly, drumming on her knees. Suddenly, Minnie left playing and ran to the window, crying, "Hey Kabuliwale! Hey Kabuliwale!" Sure enough, in the street below was a Kabuliwala slowly passing along. He wore the loose soiled clothing of his people. With a tall turban, there was a bag on his back, and he carried boxes of grapes in his hand. He looked up at Minnie, but scared, she ran away. She had a blind belief that there were perhaps 2 or 3 children inside his bag. The peddler, meanwhile, entered my doorway and greeted me with a smiling face. He inquired about Minnie, and in order to rid her of her false fear, I brought her out. Minnie stood by my chair and looked at the Kabuliwala and his bag. He offered her nuts and raisins, but not tempted, she only clung closer to me. This was their first meeting. One morning, I found Minnie chatting with great Kabuliwala at her feet, and the corner of her little sari was stuffed with almonds and raisins given by the peddler. I gave him and ate a bit, but later I found the same coin with Minnie. The bride of nuts and almonds overcame Minnie's first terror and initiated their friendship. They shared many quaint jokes. Minnie would ask him what he was carrying in his bag. He would respond, "An elephant." Not much cause for merriment, but how they enjoyed their witticism. And for me, this child's talk with a grown-up man had always in it something strangely fascinating. The Kabuliwala, not to be behindhand, would take his turn. "Well, little one, and when are you going to the father-in-law's house?" Since Minnie was too young to understand marriage, this question must have left her a trifle bewildered. But she would not show it, and with ready tact replied, "Are you going there?" Amongst men of the Kabuliwala's class, however, it is well known that the words father-in-law's house have a double meaning. It is a euphemism for jail, the place where we are well cared for, at no expense to ourselves. In this sense, would the sturdy peddler take my daughter's question? "Ah," he would say, shaking his fist at an invisible policeman, "I will thrash my father-in-law." Hearing this and picturing the poor discomfited relative, Minnie would go off into peals of laughter. It would have seemed to an outsider that there was some conspiracy between the two, for when he could not come in the morning, he would appear in the evening. It was a little startling now and then to find him this tall, loose-garmented, much bedecked man around the house. But when Minnie would run in smiling with her, "Oh Kabuliwala, Kabuliwala," and the two friends, so far apart in age, would subside into their old laughter and their old jokes. I felt reassured. One morning, around 8 o'clock, I heard an uproar in the street. I saw Rahman with two policemen, followed by a crowd of curious boys. There were blood stains on the clothes of the Kabuliwala, and one of the policemen carried a knife. I gathered that a certain neighbor had owed the peddler some money for a Rampuri shawl. When he falsely denied having bought it, a fight ensued between the two and the peddler struck him. As he was being assaulted by the police, Minnie appeared in the veranda and exclaimed, "Oh Kabuliwala, Kabuliwala." Rahman's face lighted up as he turned to her. He had no bag under his arm today, so she could not discuss the elephant with him. She at once, therefore, proceeded to the next question. "Are you going to the father-in-law's house?" Rahman laughed and said, "Just where I am going, little one." Then, seeing that the reply did not assume the child, he held up his fettered hands. I would have thrashed that old father-in-law, but my hands are bound. On a charge of murderous assault, Rahman was sentenced to some years' imprisonment. Time passed away, and he was not remembered. Even my light-hearted Minnie, I am ashamed to say, forgot her old friend. New companions filled her life. I was scarcely on speaking terms with her. Minnie had grown up. Her marriage was to take place during the puja holidays. On the wedding day, Rahman, the Kabuliwala, came to me. I did not recognize him. He had no bag or the long hair, nor the same strength he used to have. But he smiled, and I knew him again. "When did you come, Rahman?" I asked him. "Last evening," he said. "I was released from jail." The words struck harsh upon my ears. He wanted to see Minnie. He did not realize that Minnie had grown up. When I told him that some ceremony was going on in the house, he gave me a bundle of nuts for Minnie before leaving. "Don't pay me, sir. You have a little girl. I too have one like her in my own home. I think of her and bring fruits to your child, not to make a profit for myself," he said. Saying this, he took out a dirty piece of paper bearing the impression of a little ink-smeared hand. Not a photograph, not a drawing. This touch of his own little daughter had been always on his heart, as he had come year after year to Calcutta, now Kolkata, to sell his wares in the streets. Tears came to my eyes. He too was a father. That impression reminded me of my own little Minnie. I called Minnie, clad in the bridal costume. Minnie came and stood bashfully before me. The Kabuliwala looked a little staggered at the appreciation. At last, he smiled and said, "Little one, are you going to your father-in-law's house?" But Minnie now understood the meaning of the word father-in-law, and she could not reply to him as of old. I took out a banknote and gave it to him, saying, "Go back to your own daughter, Rahman, in your own country, and may the happiness of your meeting bring good fortune to my child." The Arrow and the Song. Before you read, who, in your opinion, makes an ideal friend? Do you have those qualities in you, too? What do you do when you realize that your words or actions have hurt your friend? I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth. I knew not where, for so swiftly it flew. The sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward, in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song from beginning to end I found again in the heart of a friend. Summary. In the first stanza, the poet shot an arrow, but he has no idea where it fell as it flew by fast. In the second stanza, the poet uttered a song, but he could not follow the flight of the song. In the third stanza, the poet found the arrow in an oak tree and the song in the heart of a friend. Here the arrow could mean the words we speak out. They are never broken. Words can be both hurtful and comforting depending on how we use it. When we choose our words carefully, we find them in people's hearts just as the poet found the song in a friend's heart.